Well, our international affairs commentator Douglas Herbert joins me here on set now. Douglas, it's not the first time, is it, in Dagestan that Dagestan has been in the headlines here?
Sadly, no, Stuart, and not just Dagestan, but Dagestan being one republic among a whole tapestry of republics in this so-called North Caucasus region, a region that is all part of the Federation of Russia. Look, just back in April, Russian law enforcement said that they had arrested 4 people on suspicion of plotting that attack that we saw back in March at the Moscow Crocus Concert Hall on the outskirts of Moscow. So already back then we were hearing about Dagestan. Back in 2015, now we're going back almost a decade, the Islamic State group announced that it had set up what it called a franchise of another branch within Dagestan itself. It's not to say that Dagestan has a monopoly on Islamic insurgency or extremists, but it is to say that it has been in the hub of a region that all too often has been associated, especially in the Russian popular imagination, because the Russians are always talking about this region as being sort of a simmering cauldron of extremism, of insurgency, and so on and so forth. But Dagestan in this case, not the first time. Last month, as you know, not last month, last year, last October, we had worldwide headlines when a mob literally stormed the airport in the capital city of Dagestan, Makhachkala, as we heard in that report. In that case, literally taking over passenger control, checking the documents and passports of citizens disembarking of a flight that had arrived from Tel Aviv. Why? Because they were looking for, quote, Jews and Israelis who were, according to the false rumors whipped up by the social media across the region, coming to seek refuge in Dagestan from the war that Israel and Gaza war. So you have a lot, Dagestan popping up in the news, and not just Dagestan, but also Ingushetia, also Chechnya, where Russia fought back-to-back wars in the mid-90s, early 2000s, with Islamic insurgents. Those are wars that have spilled over into the neighboring region, and to this day they remain sort of a flashpoint, a hot point for stamping out extremism.
So what's been the Russian response then to this latest attack?
Once again, an all too sort of familiar cookie-cutter pattern. Crack down on those terrorists, get those extremists approach, yet at the same time not being seen as being very effective. There's a sense in Russia, the first reaction being to sort of deflect blame. You know, last year Vladimir Putin spoke to what's called Russia's interethnic committee, and it said that interethnic harmony, let's not forget Russia is a multi-confessional, multi-ethnic country spread across 12 time zones. He said that it's the foundation, interethnic harmony of Russia. The problem is it's not shaping up in practice to be so harmonious. But they'd like to project that image. So when stuff like this happens, it's not that they can deny that it's happening, but they try to deflect the blame. They try to suggest that it's, in quote, down to external influences. Now, in the case of the Moscow concert attack, what were those external influences? You don't have to look too far. They try to blame it on Ukraine, insinuate that somehow Ukraine is involved in the West and its allies in trying to destabilize Russia. It's a false narrative. It's a narrative based on no hard evidence, but it can be very effective once the seeds are planted of that narrative. Now, they haven't said yet, in this case, Ukraine is involved, because there's no evidence that Ukraine has any link. But don't look too far. They will try to deflect blame. They will try to blame it on foreign influences. Unfortunately, that has been the pattern so far in Russia. And the last thing I'll leave you with is this idea that amid what has been a widespread crackdown on political dissent, on opposition within Russia itself, since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, there have been some bloggers and others and observers who have accused Russia of taking their eye off the real danger from extremism in this region, letting their guard down, if you will, because they're devoting so much time and energy to snuffing out political dissent.
Douglas, thanks very much. Douglas Herbert, our international affairs commentator here on France 24.